All right, welcome back. Today, we're diving into something that literally affects half the global population. But somehow, it's still wrapped up in all this mystery, stigma, and just plain misunderstanding. In today's explainer, we are completely decoding menopause. We're going to cut through the noise, look straight at the biology, break down the actual symptoms, and, most importantly, talk about how evidence-based medicine can totally empower women to thrive during this massive biological transition. Let's get into it. So, I want to start by addressing the elephant in the room right off the bat. Is menopause a disease? I mean, historically, the medical world kind of treated it like one, right? But the modern evidence-based consensus, backed by major international health organizations, is a giant, resounding no. Menopause is a normal, entirely natural biological transition. But as we'll see in a minute, the hormonal shifts that come with it can absolutely trigger some intense symptoms and long-term health changes that require real, individualized care. Here's our roadmap for today. We're going to define the transition, look at the hormonal shift, map out the symptoms and impacts, explore evidence-based treatments, and finish up with myths and empowerment. Okay, starting right at the top with part 1, defining the menopause transition. You see, a woman's reproductive timeline is a journey, and menopause itself is really just one specific milestone on that road. It starts with premenopause. Those are your standard reproductive years. Then we hit perimenopause, which is when the hormonal transition actually begins, and you might start noticing those early symptoms. Now, the strict medical definition of menopause is actually super specific. It's the permanent end of menstrual periods, and it's officially diagnosed only after 12 consecutive months without a period, assuming there's no other medical cause. Globally, the average age for this milestone is around 51. And after that, a woman enters postmenopause for the rest of her life. So what's actually happening inside the body? Let's look at part 2, inside the hormonal shift. At the cellular level, the absolute root cause of natural menopause is what we call the loss of ovarian follicular function. Basically, to put it simply, the ovaries permanently run out of follicles. This puts a stop to the natural release of eggs, which acts like a massive domino effect. It fundamentally changes the production of those key reproductive hormones that have been running the show for decades. And as those follicles decline, we see this really sharp drop in estrogen levels, along with reduced progesterone. Now, because these hormones act as messengers, your brain basically starts panicking and tries to signal the ovaries to work harder. It does this by cranking way up on follicle-stimulating hormone, or FSH, and luteinizing hormone, LH. This wild hormonal roller coaster, that is the primary trigger for the widespread bodily changes we're about to talk about. Which brings us to part 3, symptoms and health impacts. Here's the thing you have to understand. Estrogen receptors are literally all over the body. So losing estrogen affects way more than just the reproductive system. We usually break these impacts into 3 main buckets. First, vasomotor symptoms. This is your classic hot flashes, night sweats, and all the sleep problems that come with them. Second, we have what's called genitourinary syndrome of menopause, or GSM. This includes things like vaginal dryness, recurrent UTIs, and painful intercourse. And third, we've got the systemic and mental impacts, which can range from depression and anxiety to some really serious physical risks like osteoporosis and cardiovascular disease. Now, what's really crucial here are those hidden long-term systemic risks. A hot flash is immediate, it's very obvious, and it's bothersome, right? But the silent loss of bone density that leads to fragility fractures, or the metabolic changes leading to coronary artery disease, those are the serious long-term consequences of these hormonal changes. And that is exactly why proactive medical management is just absolutely vital. So, what can we actually do about all this? Let's move to part 4, evidence-based treatment options. When we look at the primary medical options, big organizations like the World Health Organization and the North American Menopause Society make one thing crystal clear. Treatment has to be highly individualized. It's not one size fits all. For some women, menopausal hormone therapy, or MHT, is an absolute game changer. It replaces that lost estrogen and progesterone and works incredibly well for eligible women dealing with tough symptoms. But for others, maybe women who can't take hormones or just prefer not to, there are some really fantastic non-hormonal options out there now. We're talking specific SSRIs, gabapentin, and newer drugs like fezolinet that also do a great job at managing those symptoms. But listen, medication is really only one piece of the puzzle. True holistic health during this time requires a comprehensive rehabilitation plan, and that should absolutely include pelvic floor physiotherapy, things like targeted Kegel exercises with biofeedback to manage urinary symptoms. It should also heavily focus on an osteoporosis exercise program. Think weight-bearing exercises, resistance training, and balance work to protect that bone mass. Plus, you've got to support all that with targeted nutrition, dialing in your calcium, vitamin D, and maybe leaning into a solid Mediterranean diet. To see how this actually plays out in the real world, let's look at a few clinical success stories. Take case 1, a 48-year-old dealing with just brutal hot flashes and sleep deprivation. She found massive relief through individualized menopausal hormone therapy. Then look at case 3, a 52-year-old struggling with painful intercourse and frequent UTIs. She was successfully treated with localized vaginal estrogen and pelvic floor physio. And case 4, a 50-year-old whose main symptoms were severe anxiety and mood swings. She found incredible relief by combining cognitive behavioral therapy, nutritional changes, and a new exercise routine. The takeaway here, listening to your body and getting tailored, individualized care is the absolute secret to maintaining an amazing quality of life. All right, let's head into our final section, Part 5, Myths, Facts, and Empowerment. It's time to set the record straight and vigorously correct the narrative. First up, the myth that menopause is an illness and that literally every woman is doomed to suffer severe symptoms. Completely false. The actual fact, it's a natural biological transition. Yes, symptoms are common, but their severity varies wildly from person to person. You are absolutely not destined to suffer. Here's another massive one, the idea that hormone therapy is dangerous and totally unsafe for everyone. This fear is basically a hangover from some really outdated, misunderstood studies. Today's reality, which is backed directly by major health organizations, is that individualized hormone therapy is incredibly safe. In fact, it provides the absolute best outcomes for eligible women when it's prescribed following current clinical guidelines. And finally, we have to talk about that super defeatist myth that weight gain and bone loss are just inevitable parts of aging and you just have to accept it. No way. The empowering fact here is that proactive lifestyle changes, and I'm talking specifically about resistance training, cardio, and smart nutrition, they actively and profoundly improve your metabolic and bone health in midlife. You actually have an immense amount of control over your outcomes. I want to leave you with this really powerful quote from our source material today because I think it just perfectly sums up the core message of this explainer. It says, menopause is a natural stage of life, not a disease. Although hormonal changes can affect the body, mind, bones, heart, and urinary system, evidence-based medical care can help women remain healthy, active, and confident throughout midlife and beyond. Understanding menopause is what empowers you to advocate for yourself. It allows you to expect and demand a high quality of life. So, armed with this new knowledge about your biology, the evidence-based treatments out there, and the powerful lifestyle tools right at your fingertips, how will you take charge of your midlife health? Thanks so much for watching this explainer. Stay curious, and I'll catch you in the next one.